Hey, yeah, that's right. It's nothing but Netflix, and it's me, Chappell, and I'm back again to talk about another Netflix show. We've been talking about a lot of Netflix reality, but now we're going to talk about a little sports documentary here with the Untold series. Now, if you've been listening to Nothing But Netflix for a while, you know we've talked about Johnny Manziel. I think we talked about Manti Te'o's imaginary girlfriend, and so this time we're going to talk about a little pistol play in the gun room. It's Untold shooting guards, and so with me I had to bring in a sports expert, one half of the Duo Sports and Stuffs podcast. It's Dane Beasley. Dane, what's up?
Man, nothing much, man. I appreciate you for having me and glad to represent myself and Deontay. I'm gonna keep it close to the vest, nothing too crazy, but making sure that you have somewhat of a content expertise to talk all these things about this brilliant documentary that we had the opportunity to watch.
Yeah, no, this is going to be so much fun breaking it down. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you're listening to this, nothingbutpod.com to subscribe, or you can check us out on YouTube as well to catch our other Netflix content coming up soon. We have a show called Sneaky Links coming soon to Netflix, and it's going to be messy. And so, we're going to talk about it here. And then we also have some potential bonus coverage of Battle Camp on Netflix as well. So make sure you tune in to that. Stay tuned, and we'll make sure that you get more Netflix content. But today we have to talk about sports and stuff. And so, Dane, this is your expertise. Have you watched any of the other Untold series on Netflix?
Yes, I watched the Manti Te'o one.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is that story has been covered, much like a few other stories over the last decade or so have been told through so many different lenses. But hearing it from different perspectives and hearing it through different networks, it's brings a refreshment. Like, oh, they didn't cover that, and when I watched it over here on it's 30 for 30, or they didn't cover this when I watched it in the SEC network and things like that. So it was pretty refreshing. But this is my second or third doc that I've watched, from the Netflix platform.
You didn't watch Untold for Johnny Manziel? I feel like that's right up your alley. That's right at home.
I don't think so.
Oh, dang.
The last piece of Manziel, and I could be wrong. The last piece of Manziel content I consumed, he was on. I forgot whose podcast. It might have been Shannon's podcast. He was on. I can't remember, but I was like, dang, he was wilding. But it seems like he's matured a lot since back in the day when he was putting College Station on his back. So I
Oh,
might have to
yeah.
check it out.
Yeah, they're gonna have to build another statue for that man just so they don't forget all the stuff that he did for them. But yes,
Yeah.
that was crazy. Shenanigans at the highest power for Johnny Manziel. Crazy stuff going on with Manti Te'o. And then I think we even talked about Malice at the Palace here on Nothing But Netflix. So we've knocked out
Yes.
a bunch of them. But I know you know the story of Malice at the Palace.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's I think that kind of kicked off everything when you talk about, the respectability politics and, what's the kids, what about the kids? The kids are watching and it's all like, well, we've anybody that's been to any level of sporting event knows that sometimes in the heat of the moment, things can happen, but most of the time get everybody riled, from everybody getting riled up, you can sort of reel everybody back in. But that's just one of those times that you weren't able to put all the water back in the bottle after it spilled all over the place. So very
Yeah.
testy situation, but very memorable, and set the precedent for quite a lot of changes in the NBA and just sports in general, and the way that we interact with the way that sports people involved in the sports interact with fans and whatnot. So it's very messy situation, but very memorable for the most part.
And a cool ass story. And so that brings us to Untold because Malice at the Palace, Manti Te'o, Johnny Manziel, these are stories that, we kind of hear in the sports streets. It's like you're watching sports, maybe you saw it during the game, maybe you heard about it backstage or, something like, it leaks out. This information gets to us and we don't ever really get firsthand accounts until someone does something like this. And so I felt really good about this because I've heard about Mr. Guns here, Gilbert Arenas before, but I don't know if I knew to this level what shenanigans they got into when it came to having these guns in the locker room. But it was definitely news when it happened, Dane.
Yeah, and the interesting part, one of the things that I loved about the way the documentary plays out is we got some OG footage from Gil, him and his hand camera and in his pranks and all that type of stuff. Some of which we didn't in some of the other documentaries I've watched that covered this incident. We didn't get some of that in the moment footage. So this kind of brings everything full picture, and gives us a complete story from all three perspectives, from Gil to Javaris and some of the teammates, and then some of the trainers here and there too.
Yeah, Javaris gets out of prison right before the probably started filming this. I mean, we see them outside of the prison when he's being released and getting the footage of this. So they've been working on this for years, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that was another thing with it starting out the way that it did. I was like, wait a minute, Javaris, what? I was like, yeah, he was in prison. Like and I forgot that, when how everything played out, and the young lady that was killed in the midst of him trying to, run it back with his ops, and I forgot that he was in prison. Like, and it had been that long, that he'd been in there, that just it didn't occur to me, like, whose point of view is this? So
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's funny because, like you said, we don't really we know that Gilbert Arenas had guns, right? We know that
yeah.
Crittenton basically has to get out of the NBA because of that. But if you forget the end of the story, you don't really realize that this kind of is just one event that snowballs and gets so big and out of control that you can really draw a line between, the things that happened that day when they were traveling and where he ends up. And so the documentary really does take a chance to look at it and say, all right, y'all know about the guns thing, but let me pull you in a little bit further and show you a full, complete story. And so, I don't know, it's sad, but I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's very sad. And
Yeah.
it starts, the tone it sets very clearly when Gil, talk about his upbringing, and his father had these aspirations to make it in Hollywood, and him being the kind of character that he was, or how he was raised, kind of shapes the way that he turns out to be this prankster, and this kind of, I kind of got to laugh to keep from crying type of deal. But you can see how that just, his character kind of manifests into this person that you just really can't have these serious or seriously confrontational, instances with. And we see that it, takes a very, very, very hard left turn. But, the good thing about it is it's one of those situations where we get to see the account from both the individuals involved, and not so much as, like you said before, like from accounts from other individuals, like secondary sources.
Yeah, because there's a lot of sports moments that I wanted to be kind of in the mix for. Who was it that was it last year when Russell Wilson slapped that young man in the huddle? That's the kind of stuff I want to see up close. Like, bring me the oral history of that, Dave. I don't want to miss nothing. Yeah. I sometimes I think about that. I'm like, man, that really happened. He really, and I said, damn, what did he do to make them so mad?
Give it like 10 years or so when he's freshly retired, and he can sit down and say, oh yeah, it's just a misunderstanding, the passions happen, and teammates get into it, and it's just in the heat of the moment. Make it seem like it's a one-off situation. Like, nah, that's a big dude. Like, he looks small in comparison to some of the other guys, but you think about it, 5'11", 6 foot, and he's 220, 230. That ain't just some small dude. This is a guy who stiff arms 300-pound lineman into the ground for a living, while rolling out to the right, striking people in the back of the end zone. So
yeah, he's a big dude, man. Yeah. Gilbert Arenas, his personality is very different though. Like, I don't think he has the same kind of like chill demeanor as someone like Russell Wilson. And so it's so funny to see that this is kind of like my introduction to, like, maybe, his backstory and stuff. But I think anybody who's ever seen the NBA, watched, some of the coverage of the NBA, you kind of know Gilbert Arenas is a jokester, right? Like, he's kind of that guy. And it's crazy because I felt really attacked, because there are definitely moments where I'm like, man, I'm that class clown. I'm the fool. Like, it's me. I'm the one who is laughing through the pain and trying to make everybody laugh to keep things light. But there's definitely a limit, and it does look like he doesn't really understand limits when it comes to his jokes, I'd say.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a time and a place for everything. Time for making light of every situation, and the time of joking, doing those types of things, building culture with the guys in the locker room. But there also becomes a time, as we saw very clearly, the gambling incident that took place on either the plane or the bus, and it's like, this is your opportunity as the leader of the team to show everybody, all right, this is how we diffuse the situation. We can have confrontation in a respectful and a positive way without it becoming negative. And again, we see this time and time again, especially when you have groups of men and top testosterone all over the place, where peer pressure finds its way and says, you gonna let him talk to you like that?
You gonna let them talk to you like
everything,
that?
and the wheels go off from there. So
Wouldn't let that happen to
it's
me though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's crazy because even Javaris, he talked about a number of times throughout the course of the hour and 48 minutes that there were times where he clearly was like, God telling him to, chill, back up, take a time out. And he just, that ego and peer pressure just had his way. And again, it's a reflective moment with anybody. Within a matter of seconds, your life can change for the worse.
it really did feel like an episode of When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong, where it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't like people playing on my phone. And then from there, like, you can't stop yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can't, once you
Right.
go so far, you kind of
Yeah.
have to see it through. So I, in a weird way, I'm not saying he was right, but in a weird
Yeah.
way, you get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. We've all
Yeah.
been there. We've all been there. We've all been in that, either a corporate space or a place we're supposed to be pretty sharp and pretty professional. And then somebody says that one thing or does that one thing, it's like,
Hit that trigger,
that
just that little.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you're retelling the story, amongst the family and friends or the spouse, you're like, I knew at the moment if he said what I thought he was gonna say, I was gonna snap. And sure enough, now you sitting there unemployed, and yeah, it felt good in the moment, decking whoever in the face, but at the same time, it's like you could have done something completely different.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like you kind of want to find a good guy and a bad guy in the story, or maybe like figure
Yeah,
out whose fault it is. And I don't know who to blame, honestly, because it all like they both had the opportunities to step away
yeah.
and make this not happen.
You bring up a valid point, and the thing about it is, when you think about the Wizards at that time, um, absolute joke of the league at the time is in completely want to take all responsibility if there are any Wizard fans that might have been listening to this right at this very moment. I mean every single word of it. Outside of that tremendous display of offensive talent we see from Agent Zero every once in a while, the rest of the organization is joke. And again, the document made sure that we knew the time frame, like fresh off of
Hmm.
a few years after Michael Jordan's, was it re-retirement, his
Uh-huh.
re-retirement, and you have this team or this organization that's considered the laughing stock of the league, and it still is to this point. And here you have Gilbert Arenas, who's again an offensive whiz and genius, but at the same time, quite clearly you can tell that front office leadership doesn't think too much of it to put anything around him in such a way that provides him some structure to be a better leader than what he has been. But yeah, it's for me. It was kind of easy to follow along with not placing a bad guy badge on anybody until things got real dark with when he escalated the situation and said, "I'd bring the gun if you want to shoot someone." Like, whoa, like
Whoa, yeah,
so.
hold on,
Yeah,
baby, slow down. Yeah, like we don't need to do all of that. Um,
yeah,
Yeah, it's tough. It's funny too, because I mean, before we even get here, we're
mm.
at the NBA draft, and it's it's 2001. Like, all right, Gilbert Arenas clearly going to be a top pick. There's probably nothing he can do to screw this up.
Yeah,
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen here? This man goes, and I guess he's he's at the
yeah.
camps. He's doing the training. They're watching him.
And them
Everybody's watching him,
interviews,
and then
he's
they
got it sewed
interview him.
up. He's got it
And
sewed up.
he's too comfortable. He said they asked him, "What do you want to be in the NBA? What type of person do you want to be in the NBA?" And this man says, "A pimp."
Yeah,
And when asked to clarify, he says, "An international pimp." And his stock just plummets.
yep. And we've seen so many instances, especially draft. Like when you're talking about the NBA draft and the NFL draft, you've seen people fall all the time based on bad interviews, bad tape.
Mhm.
They check out different resources like interviews with coaches and things like that, and we see people
Too
fall
much
all the time.
jewelry.
But yeah, true. And then you see the gas masks with the
Oh yeah, I forgot about the
the
gas
cushion.
mask.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
see it happen all the time. But for him to give us the retelling of it in live and just how he processed, and he had the opportunity. Clearly had the opportunity to clean up his response. He said, "Should I back down or should I double down?" And basically he again that whole ego and peer pressure about just this is who I am. I'm gonna be who I am, and they're gonna accept it. And you say something foolish. I want to be an international pimp, and everybody's just like, what? And again, we're not even at the point yet where everyone's where the league has gone a little bit more corporate with their dress code. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's still just one of those kind of conversations where you're trying to put on your best self. Nobody says you have to do any tap dancing during the interviews, but you want to be authentic, you want to give clear-cut answers, and you want to be professional. Let them know that your basketball or whatever sport in this case is the number one priority. But he quite literally showed them that me being the class clown, me being, I don't know, me being the first act on Comic View is what's going to get me back on, as the top guy drafted. So it backfired horribly.
And that's crazy because I bet in the moment people were like, it's not that bad. He made a bad joke. And why y'all punishing this man for that? But if you look at the tape, now that we have the documentary in front of us, didn't they have a point?
The signs were there. The signs were clearly there. The lack of maturity, he's a bad culture guy, all the talent in the world, and it's just the bad decision making is it's on the horizon just because of how he conducts himself in high pressure situations like that. So you can't even conduct yourself with some very scripted responses from interview questions that you know that are going to come up. Then how the heck can you manage this particular kind of talent in a situation where we're down by 3 and we have to win in order to make the playoffs? Like that, those are the easy questions that, those individuals that are in charge that have to think about. All right, do we really want to select this player to propel us into the next age of, success in the NBA, or are we going to just go with the next guy that might send us back, 15 or 20 years? And again, you're the Wizards, so you really have nothing to lose in the first place. But still, that's how everything played out.
And on top of all of that, of his entire draft class, 2001, he's still like top tier of that entire class. And there's some strong competitors out of that class. But I'm looking at the people that he got drafted after. And I mean, like Kwame Brown, I think was number 1 that year or something like that, which
man, those were some painful years. As a Lakers fan, those were some painful years, boy. And that whole thing just,
Yeah, I mean, not to just pick on Kwame Brown, but I mean, easily this man is like, this is one of the top contenders in that. Like you got Gasol, Parker, and Gilbert, and then maybe like next tier Shane Battier, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then below that, and below that, you probably got Richard Jefferson, who, as we would find out in here,
give him some that. Hey, man, they're gonna call your name soon. You can, and that's the horrible thing about. I mean, not horrible because like it's
funny.
It's poetic justice. Like you got the one guy on your team that you're clearly better than. That's giving you the pep, like, hey man, it's gonna be all right. Your name's gonna be called soon, and gives you that false sense of like, yeah, what am I tripping about?
Yeah, you up next.
And then he gets his name called. It's like, but he
all right, peace. Yeah,
he's the second fiddle to me. Like, how did so? Yeah, that's if anything, if there was anything in the world that I would assume would humble somebody in that situation, to be like, you know what, maybe it's me. Maybe I need to look at the man in the mirror, see if there's a way that I can change things around. Change things by myself to make sure that I can put my best foot forward for whatever organization takes a chance on me. And clearly, we saw that did not alter the path of course of history for Gil.
No, that's a good point. You would think that, hey, okay, that was very humbling. I said a thing that was stupid. I did a thing that was dumb. Maybe I should just chill and kind of like stay out of my own way. But Arenas looks up and he says, actually, I'm kind of nice out here, and at some point, these people in DC love me. They love it here. I'm playing good ball. I'm basically the Jordan replacement, if you will, for this city. And I'm the best thing they got. So they just gonna have to deal with me and my attitude, because where else are they gonna go? And so you're right. You see him not really learning from what happened. In fact, when asked, or I don't even know if he was asked this, but he literally says, if I could go back and do it again different, I wouldn't. And I was like, wait, what? Knowing what you know?
Doubling down. And again, like watching him say that, and then fast forward to the very end of the document, it's like, has this person matured at all? Like, is there any type of change or any life lessons that have been learned throughout the process? And I mean, for me, it was clear, very clear. No, I mean, he's less of a goofball than he was before, but that level of maturity or immaturity, for that matter, is still there, and that's kind of scary. So he's a father. I mean, obviously we'll get to it later on down the road, but him being a father now, you'd hope those are some life lessons that he's able to pass on to his kids and make sure, like, hey, learn from me. This ain't what you want to do. I had all the talent in the world, and clearly, nearly pissed it all away over some foolishness.
Yeah, he got away with this one. I don't know how, but he did. And well, I guess we could speculate about how at the end of this. But Javaris Crittenton ends up coming to visit you over there as on the Lakers team, a team that they talk about has a legacy of winning and blah. I like, boo, boo. Nobody want to hear this. It's a royal dynasty over there. I was like, all right, whatever, man.
Yeah.
Y'all took Luka. I will never forgive you. I will never forgive you.
I still scratch my head at that one. And my wife, she's a Mavericks fan, and so when that whole trade happened, I thought it was a joke because I woke 2 a.m, go use the bathroom. I looked at my phone, I was like, okay, this must be this is a joke. I was like, hey, babe, I think Luka got traded to the Lakers. She's like, no, he didn't. I was like, yeah, you're right, he did. Yeah. Anyways, like that whole stint that he had with the Lakers and him, it kind of was an interesting perspective from Crittenton, because he acknowledged that he was this phenomenal player coming out of Georgia Tech, and the scouts and the coaching staff knew that he was a phenomenal player. But coming into an organization like that where there was so much structure with Phil Jackson, and of course this now outdated offense, or this now outdated scheme they were running with the triangle, and how he didn't fit into that. And it's one thing when you're the analogy that they use here in Texas, the big fish in the small pond, and then now you've moved on to this organization you're in a massive ocean, and you're just a small little tadpole of a fish, and you're amongst whales and sharks and all this type of thing. So now it's like the competition is it's a little bit crazier, right? And your talent might not be able to carry you and put you in that position to be as successful as you were in the past. So now you got to find a way to get in where you fit in. And we see very early on that it doesn't go the way that he thinks it's supposed to go, and it sends him into a bit of a spiral.
Yeah, and we really do get the story of someone who we should be rooting for, right? I feel like the documentary really wants us to see that it was this one turning point in his life that really made him go, down a path that he was never able to stop. And then this is what brings us to present day. That this altercation with Gilbert Arenas does this, but we really do start seeing that he grew up in a family in the projects, and like a loving family, grew up with a bunch of women in his house that took care of him, showed him how to love, all this other stuff, but he never really earned the respect to earn the ability, I guess, to learn their ability to respect male figures as much. They had to really earn it from him, because he just wasn't used to that type of it just wasn't how he was raised. And so he then goes to college, and he does everything right. He's getting good grades, he's working really hard on basketball. We don't get any news or any word of him getting any trouble in college, but then he ends up going to the Lakers, and that's got to be the dream. You want to play basketball your whole life, cool, but you're getting a chance to play basketball with Kobe Bryant. At that point, there's no higher high, I don't think, that you can offer a basketball player, not in that generation of player. And so here he is, not getting the playing time. His friends at home are watching the game like, hey man, you hurt? Why you not on, why you ain't got your uniform on? What's going on? And he having to really sit with that. And I think, honestly, if anything was the turning point, it's like the moment where he kind of goes into this depression and having to figure out who he is if he's not playing basketball. He doesn't have his family. He's in LA for the first time. And so now he's doing LA shenanigans. He's out here running with the Crips.
Rolling 20s and 30s. And that's the crazy thing too. We've all, well, if you've been on this earth long enough, you know that there are individuals that make it out of high school, make it through college, go through life or whatever the case. And for whatever reason, I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis. I say it like a quarter life crisis. They feel the need, I need to belong to something. Let
Yeah.
me go. Let me go gang bang. Let me go get in these streets and
Gang
see what
bang.
kind of trouble somebody can accept me for the foolishness that I'm about to get into. I'm like, and again, I get that there's a sense of wanting or belonging that someone might desire if they're in a lonely situation, but it's got to be other ways to be able to get to that.
Yeah.
And again, there's that whole situation can be explored because it's such a I wouldn't even want to put a number to it because I don't have the background to substantiate those type of numbers, but it's got to be a large enough issue to be explored and serve and determine like why or how is this one of the go-tos for people who find themselves in a lonely position or siloed or just not having any support system around them that you need to feel you feel the need to go live out those type of fantasies or feel the need to gravitate towards violent criminal organizations and such. So I don't know. I don't see the lore behind it. And again, not the life that I've ever lived, nor desire, but I know that's a lot of stories for a number of people, especially some that are in the limelight and have the talent to be in the professional athletic scene. So I
Hmm.
don't know.
To me, it feels like he needed protection. It seems like he starts. He wants to be in the neighborhood. I think he's in
Yeah.
LA, but he's used to
You want to be in
being.
that element.
Yeah, he used to the element, so he wants to be not too far from it. I feel like there
Yeah,
is an allure because I feel like if you was on your own side of town, stuff like this wouldn't happen. But there's
for sure.
definitely moments where I think where he gets like robbed or something like that. Where it's starting to look because he starts clubbing. That's what it is. He starts going out,
Yeah.
and so yeah, he gets robbed, and so I think for that he started looking for, man, I don't got no friends out here. I want friends, but he don't want just any friends. He's not trying to join the city council. The Boys and Girls Club. Like he don't want to go be a mentor. He need
Big
friends.
brothers.
Yeah, Big Brothers. He don't want to do that. He's not trying to be a Boy Scout troop leader. He out here looking for protection. People gonna keep
Yeah,
him safe, and he does turn to the Crips. And so, yeah, this is almost like his villain origin story. Not to say that he's a villain, but you can definitely see kind of where the story is going. It's like, and after this moment, he's got the tattoos. He's just a different person fundamentally because he's finally strayed from that straight and narrow path he had been on all the way
right.
since we first, meet him when he's when he's a little kid, in this documentary. Yeah, he's doing great, and then it's just this swerve, and it never comes back.
Yeah, and it's sad to see in real time as he's revisiting this and the way that he's speaking, and he gravitates to speaking in present tense and past tense to let us know that
Mm-hmm.
part of that still alive is in there somewhere, but the
Mm-hmm.
way that he's feeling about navigating society, it's this chip that he still has on his shoulder. So it's interesting to see how he talks about it, not so much as glorify it, but know that this is something that I quote unquote had to do. And you just never know what somebody you never know what somebody might push themselves to if they find themselves in such a hole like that, especially with him, used to being the guy, especially in the athletic sense. And when you don't have that, when your identity might be wrapped up in that and you have nothing else and you don't have that opportunity to show that you are that athlete, then it's like, what else can I gravitate to? And I think that just wasn't an easy opportunity for him to find some sort of community within it, rolling with the Crips and, I guess refinding himself in such a way. So it's interesting to see the way he spoke about it.
Yeah, he ends up finally getting traded to Washington. And this was like, okay,
Yeah.
I know where the story is kind of going here, but
Right.
I didn't really know the relationship that he had with Gilbert Arenas, right? Like I knew that there was going to be a gun incident, but I really wanted to know, like, is this just one of those things where these two people just would never get along? They didn't mesh well. And it seems like I'm they don't actually say it because I think they have a decent relationship right now. But I really
Right.
do think this is oil and water. This is
Yeah.
somebody who's very serious, very respectful, but very straightforward, and like he puts a lot into his own way of just like interacting from a man to man. And then you have Gilbert Arenas, who is a clown, and like I say that as a clown, like I understand sometimes you be laughing and joking, and the other dude is laughing, but he laughing because he can't take a joke. He just trying to laugh it
Yeah.
off, you know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I've been there. I've been there where I'm just, as far as I'm concerned, I'm having a good time, and the other person is just not picking up what I'm putting down. And so he was never going to be okay with the antics that Gilbert Arenas has, but Gilbert Arenas was never going to stop for him either. So it's kind of like you have these two trains that are about to be they're on a collision course and they're about to explode, and it happens all while they're traveling.
Yeah, how they said in Dark Knight, an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Movable object,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing at play here. And again, I formerly reformed goofball myself. Putting myself in the shoes of Gil when he's going through talking about this is who I am. I'm joking. I'm a prankster. This is what I do. And like in my head, I'm like, okay, I've been there before, joking, pranking. And there was a time when I was in this situation. All right, the look on his face looks like he want to beat my ass. So maybe I should stop. I'm gonna read the room, back off, and we'll try this again tomorrow and not go too hard. I don't think he has that switch.
He doesn't have that switch.
That little the little dude the little pixie that pops up on the shoulder, like, hey man, we need to chill out. Like, I just think he has the other little pixie to be like, yeah, keep going.
It's two of them. He got one. Yeah. It's the same guy on both shoulders. He's like, yeah, more. Turn up. That's
exactly what you're expecting. For me, watching it and knowing how everything played out, you're expecting. There's still a part of me that's expecting him to, like, okay, this is when he realizes this is where I can't go this far anymore, and realizing that, calling people out their name the way that I've been calling them out their name, and undressing them in such a way comedically in front of everybody could be not only humiliating but also scarring for them. That never happens. Unfortunately, it never happens. Even though I know how it plays out, but I'm like, all right, is he on that aha moment? Like, I probably shouldn't talk about my teammates like this. But at the end of the day, we realized, this is the Wizards. Of course, they're not. This isn't going to have like this happy ending of sorts. It's just going to be the way that it is. But still, from a standpoint of socially ostracizing somebody the way that he did, it was just kind of like, at what point is anybody capable of be like, like, chill out, man? And again, that's what we see, Crittenton, when he talks about, like, we don't do this type of stuff where I'm from, like people know not to do that type of stuff. We respect each other as men and all this type of stuff. And like you said, we were looking at a very, very clear case of oil and water, and just the way that these two individuals and their upbringing and how they interact socially with people they call close friends or teammates, two totally different things. But there was a complete miscarriage of management from coaching staff and the front office to be able to put somebody in that locker room to help be a barrier or more of a culture setting guy that can help balance everything on the opposite side of pranks and all this type of stuff. But again, this is the kind of organization you're dealing with, so this is what you can expect.
It's tough because Gilbert Arenas is the guy. It's he is the face of the team. He is the number one scorer on the team, and then, like I said, arguably probably the third or fourth person out of that entire draft class. So it's really hard to tell that guy to chill. It's like you think you can tell him to chill, and you hope that he listens to you. But if he doesn't, what you really gonna do about it? Are you really gonna put your foot down? Are you gonna reprimand him, or are you just gonna be quiet so you can win some games? And so he probably had a little bit more
money they was paying him anyways, too, bro.
Not at all. And so let's get to the actual incident. Question number one. Were you familiar with the actual incident, or had you heard, just like the rumored incidents? Because there are so many rumors out there. I mean, the one that I love is that it was a $25,000 debt. And he was going to shoot him in the face. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was the one that I grew up on. So,
right, that's the one. Exactly. I was gonna say that's what.
Right, the gambling debts. I owed you some money, and we bringing some guns into the locker room, and it was a brandishing event. Like that's what I grew up knowing and believing. And again, the beautiful thing about that is the way that they had. I forgot Buddy's name from the media, that he knows everything about everything and all these small, finite, meticulous details. Like, he was able to bring that full circle in terms of, like, there is a sector of the media that gets stuff wrong, but not me.
Not me, man. He said, I like my job.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we get Javaris, Gil, Earl Boykins, and JaVale McGee, who I think is the perfect person. The perfect person. He always look like he's confused by what just happened. Like, what? Always. I can just imagine his face while this is going on. Like, what is happening?
And again, in large part of growing up as a sports fan, knowing that there's always a whipping board for whatever sports you're watching. Like there's always the guy like, oh yeah, we point to them, we laugh at. But as soon as you bring up the Wizards and they brought up the whole incident on the bus of the plane with the $200, all this over $200 if I remember correctly, with JaVale. I'm like, oh, JaVale's at the center of this. Damn, this is only gonna go from bad to worse.
It did. It really did. So the story seems like JaVale and Earl, two people who are not involved in any of this gun shenanigans, by the way, they're gambling. And it becomes like a pissing contest in the NBA. You know, we don't gamble small bills, big bills only, okay? And big money don't fold. So they writing checks, okay? They out here like $25,000, you know, $7,000, $15,000. They making bets. But JaVale asked to borrow $200, it seems. And he starts winning. He gets his money back, essentially. And so now Earl is like, hey, let me get my $200. Yeah. According to Gilbert, JaVale is like, nah, I can't give you the money right now. I'll give it to you when I land, because it seems like Earl had been losing. Okay.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't want to feed your habit right now. Okay. I'm gonna let the vibe chill, and then I'm gonna give you your money. But Javaris did not like this. He felt like this is his money. He let you borrow his money. You have his money. You pay him back his money. Dane, who is correct?
To me, it seemed like Javaris was out of pocket from the standpoint of like, this has nothing to do with you. Like, you're not, like, again, they make it very clear, both of them, Gil and Javaris, they make it very clear that neither one of them had anything to do with it, but he felt the need to insert himself in the situation and agitate it. And to me, it seemed like there was some sort of, I don't know, trauma response from maybe some sort of dealing that he had in the past with some sort of gambling debts, or some that kind of just made a switch flip for him, because they inference to this so many times that he just wouldn't let it go. And then to my point, it's like, this ain't got nothing to do with you. This JaVale, again, who we always butt of a lot of jokes, trying to do the mature thing and say, nah, I'm not going to give you money back, essentially trying to, help his friend out for not pissing away the money that he borrowed from him. So it's just, it could have all been squashed had he just stayed out of it. So to me, this is quite literally one of those situations where if Javaris would just keep it pushing and stop trying to, put more fuel on top of the fire, this would have been nothing. We probably wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah, and then of course, if we weren't also talking about Gilbert Arenas, because he too is not going to mind his own business. So he gets up and he's jumping in, trying to insert his information into the conversation, and then him and Javaris start going back, and then it starts to be like, oh well, I'll blow your car up, or I'll set your car on fire. It's like, oh, well, I'll shoot you in the knee. Oh, you gonna shoot me in the knee? Yeah, I'll shoot you in the knee. I'll shoot you in your good knee, not my good knee.
You gonna shoot me in the pinky toe?
The pinky toe. Yeah.
So the crazy thing about it is like, anybody that's listening and watching this, put themselves in that position, because we've all been in the middle of, not this example per se, but the mommy and the daddy are both at this situation at the dinner table, and who's gonna win? Who's gonna be the first person to back? I'd be so honest. I'd be so very, very swayed to say that we've all been in a situation like that in the heat of the moment. Again, testosterone building up for whatever reason. Everybody's having a meat swinging contest, and it boils down to who's going to get the last word, who's going to not be the punker in the situation. Again, we're talking about a huge element of peer pressure and ego. It overboils to a point of you throwing around, a lot of times we could throw around these insults and these threats, but it's hard to say based on the way the Gil is explaining his side of the story and the way that Javaris was defending himself, that I think initially this started some, empty threats and selling wolf tickets, but at the same time, it's like, this is some stuff you just don't say in terms of threatening somebody. And injury, and especially basketball players, injury and calling death to somebody, that's just, I guess, one of those lines you probably just shouldn't cross.
Yeah, he says, I'll shoot you in your good knee. And he says, oh yeah, you gonna shoot me? Yeah, I'll shoot you. All right, I'll bring the gun. And you could just see JaVale McGee just like, oh, just like So,
Perfect.
yeah, I'm telling you, when I heard it was JaVale McGee, I was like, bro, this couldn't get no funnier. So this is as funny as the story is going to get, because from here it gets dark. Javaris, he goes home and he can just hear the voices in his head, like, oh, he's trying to play you.
Like that?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. You ain't gonna do nothing.
You gonna let it.
Yeah, he driving in the car, redoing the argument in his head. Yeah, and I should have punched him right then. Or I should have said XYZ. And he in the shower thinking about it. Like he can't sleep at night. He just see Gilbert Arenas and like, I'll bring the gun. I'll bring the gun. And to me, it seems like Javaris took this as a threat. Hey, you've already threatened to blow up my car. Now you're saying that you shoot me, blah, blah, and you'll bring the gun. Are you saying that I should bring a gun if you bring in a gun? What's happening here? And so he really takes a stance of almost self-defense in this moment, where he says, nah, I was coming and I brought the gun because I wanted to make sure my family was safe. I can't have Gilbert Arenas doing wild stuff to me in the locker room, bringing out the gun, threatening my family. Now that's it. Dang. In your professional opinion, do you think Javaris should have felt threatened by Gilbert Arenas shooting him in the locker room? Did you think this was a real concern that anyone should have had, just from your opinion?
Nah, I think that was the pride talking. It was you coming into this. First of all, you come into this team, and this is Gil's team. You show up, so that Gil. Everything runs through Gil. If there's a right that needs to be righted, it goes to Gil. For wrong that needs to be right, it goes to Gil. Like, he's the guy. And I think I'm not sure if he alluded to this in any way, shape, or form during the documentary, but to me, it almost comes off as a level of power tripping that he wasn't going to allow to keep happening. And he was drawing and to me, you don't have the skill set, you don't have the star power, you don't have at least the half of the locker room on your side to try to go up against Gil, of all people. So I don't know. To me, it just comes off as my pride and my ego is hurt. I got to do something. I got to do something to make sure that everybody knows that I'm him. And again, this is what we see. It just goes completely south. Like, we already knew it was going to be bad, but it just goes completely south.
Yeah, and a tiny part of me thinks I really can't blame him, because Gilbert shows up with guns. This fool shows up with guns. Guns. And like, I don't know. Should I get the Tiger Stripe Desert Eagle? I don't know. Apparently this man is a whole ass gun collector. So when he said I bring the guns, it's probably common knowledge to everybody on that plane that Gilbert got guns. And I think maybe that is another thing that's fueling this, is like, when he says he's gonna bring the gun, I'm pretty sure he is gonna bring the gun. Like, that sounds like something he would do. He doesn't seem like a person who really respects boundaries when it comes to just normal rules and regulations. It just seems like he's gonna toe the line or cross it more times than not. So Gilbert shows up. He puts the guns on the chair where the locker is, and he then leaves a note. Choose one. Now, this sounds like he challenging this man to a duel. Like, you grab your gun, I grab my gun, we go outside, do 10 paces, turn
at high noon.
Right, exactly. Like, so again, I really want to be like Javaris, though. You knew he was, but at the same time, how far are we gonna take this?
It's a tricky situation because it's very volatile, right? Because you have, like you said, you have Gil on one side who can't take nothing serious, but at the same time, like, obviously he's not going to back down or change his mind from when he's already got his mind set on something. And then you got Javaris is, like, at this point, overly serious about his situation. And again, he has every right to be offended and pretty pissed off about somebody trying to check him, trying to G-check him in front of the entire team. I get that. But you got the unstoppable force and the immovable object, and there's no one wins in this situation, like, period. Like, and it can only go down here even more from here.
Yeah, well, Gil is like, we might get in a little trouble. It gets out. News gets out. Pete Beasley is like on the scene. He's getting the information. He's got the firsthand sources, and it gets out that Gil had guns. The Crittenton had guns too, and now Gil's thinking, all right, we'll probably get 3 to some days, 3 to some games, a suspension. No, the commish wants to make an example. Yeah, and we know this happens in all sports. is that if you step out of line too much, they will make an example of you. And so they end up suspending them both for 50 games. And while 50 games is bad for Gilbert Arenas, this is career ending for Javaris here. So that hurts, where that Gilbert Arenas has the room to act like this because he, like you said, he has the basketball stardom and the skill to where they could turn the other cheek for him. They can look the other way. They're not looking the other way for Crittenton.
Nope. Gil had that job security on his side. Something we always preach in the HR space is job security, and he had it. And the crazy thing about it was, and I can't remember if it was either head coach or general manager that said it to him, or agent or maybe it was general manager that said it to him. That said it to Javaris, like you and Gil, y'all are in this together. So whatever happens to him, it happens to you. And again, we're talking about Gil. Gil don't care. Gil knows his bread is butter. They call him Mr. Bankman every time he pulls up because the money's going to be there. But
right.
For Javaris, this is pretty much the end, and it seems like a really good opportunity for Gil to just like let everything die down and move on with their life. But he doubled down, and especially with the way he doubled down and making the gestures in the huddle. And during one of the games, just like lets everybody know that he again still hasn't come full circle, and it's still kind of sputtering around in that prefrontal cortex for him in terms of if this is going to be serious or not. So he just never gets it.
Yeah, I feel like he's poking the bear. It's like the media is swirling around this, and then you're fanning the flames, but the fire is never going to affect you. It's like he's fanning the flames from inside the fire truck, and the only person outside burning is Javaris. And he's like, damn, man. I'm not gonna say it's my fault that this happened, but we both made choices that day. It's like, but you kept making choices. This man was probably laying low, and you just kept driving it home that this is a joke, that this is something that should be taken very seriously, and that leaves Javaris to basically being out of the league. Tries to go play in China. He moves around a little bit, but he's never quite able to get back on the ball, and then he ends up going home. And we know what happens when people who left home to get out of the neighborhood they were in go back home. They always end up back in the streets, back in the neighborhood, because it's where they feel comfortable. And he found himself comfortable around some bad people. These people have been plotting on him because he got a little money now. He's got money, he's got some fame. And so now he's a target, and his old community isn't even the way it was when he was there. I think that's the worst thing in the world. When you grow up somewhere, let's just even say it's just something as simple as like you went to college somewhere and you go to school there, and then you come back years later, and you're like, dang, it's so different. Yeah, what happened to my favorite such and such?
And then closed down the HEB that we used to be over here. What's the
right? Exactly. What is this? These people got. Oh, that's free now. We used to have to walk, and that's when you start doing it. We used to have to walk 10 miles in the snow. It's just that feeling of like, dang, I'm not involved here no more. This isn't me anymore. And I think he never had that feeling. Like he just came home and tried to act like, okay, I'm back home. Everything is the same. But the gang wars are happening, and he gets caught up a couple times. It looks like he's getting robbed here and there, and he's now at another turning point in his life. It's like, should he get out of the hood, maybe go to Baltimore and stay there, or should he come back and try to make people pay for disrespecting him and show them that he is not to be messed with? And Dane, it's like a fork in the road, and he chooses the same fork he chose earlier with Gilbert Arenas in the gun.
Yeah, and you want to feel for the guy because from what I remember, get back to Atlanta, gets robbed. And he, goes up to Baltimore. First day he gets there in Baltimore, gets robbed. And the level of calmness is in his voice makes it seem like it's just so routine. And you getting robbed, anybody like that it should never become a normal for anybody. But we always know anytime there's people that have, there are people that have not. And those two different identities clash often. And it shouldn't be that way. But we always know that there are people that have everything to lose and some people that have nothing to lose, or some people that have something to lose and other people that have nothing to lose. And he unfortunately ran into those individuals one too many times. But to your point, he knew it, and he said it was that time when he thought he heard God tell him, like, "Hey, let's just back it up and turn around." And he ignored it. He quite literally knew there was a fork in the road, and he should have went this way, and he ended up going this way.
Yeah. So he pulls up on the guy who robbed him, and him and his cousin, and they open fire. And he clearly gets the guy, but he also sees that two bodies are on the ground, and there's a victim there who was not involved in this at all. And very, very sad. Her name is Julian Woods, and she passes away at the scene. We get interviews from her mom where she's talking about how, you know, her daughter was a mother of two and that she was an innocent bystander, and this shouldn't have happened. And so we will see the detective come in, and he's talking about you know, how they track Crittenton down, basically just like, I mean, honestly, the way they tracked him down is somebody recognized him because he's massively famous.
Yeah, slam dunk. Like, and the crazy thing, you hear about this all the time with you know, dumb criminals. You go to the bank to go rob a bank, and you accidentally leave your wallet.
Yeah,
it's just quite literally similar. And it's not to say that you should be a smart criminal. It's not saying that. It's just saying that the level of just doing something at the drop of a dime, like, and it's just crazy. But they, you know, they're able to trace Buddy based on some, you know, identifying information of the vehicle that he was driving, and within, I think, a few miles of the actual crime scene, getting video footage from a car rental spot, and here this dude is, like, at the counter. I'm like, yeah, at this point, you kind of gift wrap all the evidence to the police that are running the investigation to get you. And again, it's one thing if no one got hurt, right? But this is an innocent bystander that ended up, you know, her life has changed. Her life has changed forever. Her children that she leaves behind, their lives have changed forever. And then her grieving mother, you know, her life has changed forever, which is, it's a horrible thing, because we start the documentary, and Gil is talking about how he grew up without a mom. And now, on the other side of the coin, you have the other person that's at the subject of this particular documentary that is responsible for other kids not being able to grow up with their mom. So it's just like, it's a horrible situation all around. And just the worst thing you can think about is, like, this could have all just been prevented.
He really had the world at his fingertips. You know, it was just like he did the thing. You know, they tell you if you work hard and you put your head down and you stay on track, then good things will happen to you. And he did for a while. But then there were definitely moments where he would let his obstacles make him make some less than good decisions, I guess I'd say. You know, joining the Crips probably wasn't the best idea, you know, like really reinforcing that hardened criminal aspect of some of the game activities. I'm not going to say, like, I know the Crips are watching this. I know y'all watching. I'm not going to say the Crips is bad, because I know that, you know, deep down, y'all be doing community work and all that kind of stuff. It's just on a surface level, y'all. You just can't keep killing people like that. I mean, it's not good. And so, yeah, he's like reinforcing that thug mentality that he could have, you know, being where he came from and then what he's been through. And now he's back in that environment, and he's letting go of all the things that he worked so hard for, just like you said, based on ego. And here we see him sentenced to 23 years in jail. He'll end up getting out after 10 years. And this part of the story, I definitely didn't know.
Jaw dropping.
They made a deal with the DA, and the DA basically got him out. But the DA at the time is Uncle Paul Howard, uncle of Dwight Howard, who he went to school with. He went to high school with Dwight Howard. And so his uncle was able to, well, allegedly, according to this, we don't really know. But we suspect, or the documentary suspects, that his uncle was able to pull strings and get him out, which I know that's not unheard of. That probably happens in the criminal justice system a lot more than anybody talks about.
Yeah.
But they didn't even talk to the family, you know, of the victim. And that's just where this feels really gross. Like, you could at least told them people what you was finna do.
Right. And it's crazy. We know that they say that the justice system works, and for the most part, it was working in the family's favor, and they'll never be able to get their lost loved one back. But the next best thing is to make sure that the person that's responsible for said crime is, put away to a position where they can be rehabilitated and re-enter society, hopefully as a changed person. And the worst thing about it, that gut punch, we're talking about, is he gets out after just serving half of that sentence, and without the family having any type of say so, any type of involvement in this particular clause or loophole that was the deal that was done for him. And it's heartbreaking, because you obviously you're rooting for these subjects of this documentary, but also there's that human side of you. It's like, wait a minute, this is wrong. This family deserves the justice they deserve justice at the hands of their daughter being slaughtered like that. And it's just like, part of me can't feel excited or okay with him getting out of prison after doing 10 years, because that whole family's life has changed forever. And it sucks. And the only way that I can look at this and like see some sort of positive side of it is the fact that the work that he's doing on the outside, again, involved in the community with those kids, and make sure that their few dumb mistakes that they're making isn't going to impact their lives the way that it's impacted him. But still, it leaves you feeling kind of gross.
None of this is good. This is awful. Loss of innocent life, and then also just somebody who's kind of throwing their life away, crashing out like this, and then of course not even letting the family in on the idea that this man can get out of jail early. It all feels bad. And so, I agree with you though. The prison system is supposed to be for rehabilitation, and that's cool. Like, you need to go evaluate these people, and if they've done their time and they're being rehabilitated, then you let them back into society, and they go and they have learned from their mistakes. But I do think there's a human level to where you definitely let the family in on this if you're going to make that decision. If they're not going to sit out their sentence, because who's to say? Maybe he didn't necessarily learn from his mistakes. Maybe he's still a crash out. He just hasn't had a chance to crash out since, and maybe there's another one brewing. Who knows? And so they took a risk, and he's out. But you're right. He's trying to make, I guess, the best of his situation. He's talking to youth that are troubled youths as well, to really help them. And while he's doing this, Gilbert Arenas has quietly just became basically one of the superstars of the league. He's now retired, or at least he's not playing anymore. And dare I say, future potential Hall of Famer, maybe? This is crazy that these two people could be involved in this incident and have such different trajectories for what's about to happen next.
It's insane. And it just also reminds you just how short the professional athlete's career can be, but also just at the drop of a dime, that how things can change so quickly. And I'm not in a position to say that, oh, this is all Gil's fault, or oh, this is all Javaris' fault. But the understanding that I have walking away from this is that both of these men had tremendous opportunity at their fingertips, and all they had to do was do some growing and maturing, and it would play itself out. But they didn't get that opportunity because of their own selfish ambitions and misguided actions. So I really hoping it was a lesson that a lot of people can learn from, especially as we're entering this age and these athletes are just growing on trees like this. So it, just a reminder, like, this type of stuff, it could happen to you too. But hopefully this is a deterrent for people watching it, so that we're able to learn something and value the sanctity of life.
Mm-hmm. This is supposed to be a documentary about basketball, but oh my God, it's so deep. It really got to a point where it's like, I didn't know we got here in this story.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy too. It's been such a running joke for so long with Gilbert Arenas.
Right.
Back when he was in the league, people talked about this moment, and now I'm like, damn, it's not even really that funny. I was like, we've laughed, we had a good time talking it through. But man, it's such a tragic tale for all parties involved, not named Gilbert Arenas. And so hopefully we won't see any more Untold shooting guards documentaries anytime soon, because these Netflix documentaries, I'm telling you, all of the ones I've seen have been so good. I gotta go watch a few more, because when I was looking for this one, I really saw some of the other ones that they had. Like, they have the Florida Gators one, and so there's a lot to unpack with all of that. But thank you so much, man, for joining me here on Nothing But Netflix, dog. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate you for having me. It's always a good opportunity to hop back in the mic with you and just, chop it up and shoot the breeze. So thank you for having me, man, and glad to represent the duo on behalf of my friend that is not here at the moment, but I'm sure he'll be watching.
Yeah, make sure you check out the duo whenever they come out of hiatus. Whenever it happens, y'all be there, be ready. Make sure you follow the duo as podcast on Twitter, and Dane, of course, at Dane BTX. And then as far as I'm concerned, man, we're here on Nothing But Netflix. Like I said, we got reality TV coverage coming soon with sneaky links. Messy show. We're going to talk it all through here on Nothing But Netflix, and then over on recapkickback.com, my podcast, where we talk about whatever else I want to talk about. We got Pop the Balloon coverage every week with me and Chantel. We got Mari and I talking about various topics. We talked about the Met Gala this week, and so I was in my fashion bag. I don't really know what I was talking about, but it was fun to pretend like I did. And then, check us out for future bonus content for some of our other reality shows as well. But that's about it. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you check out Nothing But Netflix, subscribe to the podcast, nothingbutpod.com. And I don't know, tune in next week to see what we have coming up next. Peace.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.
Man.